that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Just like old times, huh? Where it's like I'm looking up at you instead of it being eye level. Apologies for that. Quite noisy. This is why I usually do my reviews in the middle of the early morning. But here we are, doing it for you. Today, I have for you the prequel that is, sadly, at least of recording this, which is January 2nd, 2025, the first book in the Karkanas Trilogy by Steven Erickson, which is, of course, Forge of Darkness. What can I say about this book? When you read the main 10, because I definitely want to recommend reading this before the main 10, though I know some people have done that and they're a wee bit insane, I'd say. If you are a big fan of Toll the Hounds, if that was one of your favorite books in the entirety of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, then I think you will really enjoy Forge of Darkness. Now, I have not completed Forge of Darkness. This is only my thoughts on the first two parts, because they don't call them books here. They call them parts, like I guess like a play, like a Shakespearean medieval tragedy. But I'm loving it so far. It definitely gives those Toll the Hounds vibes. There are lots of philosophical discussions. There are a lot of thematic things brought up in this first half, and I don't know how it's going to conclude. I mean, some of these things, I imagine, can't be concluded until the third book, because, well, certain things have to happen. Animander Rake's sword, which he doesn't have yet. Draconis getting trapped in it. But that's some of the beauty of this story, where you're getting an early tale of these characters, of Animander Rake, of Andarist, of Solchis Ruin, of Kilimandros, of Odril, or Spinnik Dorov, or I'm trying to think of whoever else we've heard of, Orphantull, and Salon. All these people we're getting backstories for and learning more about them, and it's really, really intriguing, and I really, really enjoy it. Now, the prologue for this story is basically two, sort of bards, artists. We have Fisher, which you would know if you've been reading the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and of course he was prominent in A Sail by Esselmont, which is the final book in the novels The Malazan Empire, and they're just spitting back and forth about the ancient past. Some of it may be true, some of it may be false. I'm probably going to consider the majority of this true until proven otherwise. But it's really interesting so far, and again, I can't speak to the book as a whole because I've not completed it. This is only the first half. First 300-something pages out of 600, so there's another 300 to get through before I can properly get out my thoughts. But it is so well written. The prose in this series, in some instances, rivals that of the entirety of Book of the Fallen. It's like Erickson went 110% into this. And again, like, it's not going to be for everyone. If Toll the Hounds was not for you, you may find yourself not enjoying this, because this very much is a similar vibe. If you're looking for more of just the main, Malazan's books that weren't like Toll the Hounds, you may be disappointed. But just manage your expectations. This is not the Animander Rake story specifically. We're learning about a lot of characters here. Mother Dark, Draconis himself, new characters. This is not just the story about Animander. Of course, Animander's in it, and we're learning insights, and it's really interesting and intriguing, but it's not just about him, so don't expect it to be. And expect it to not every chapter be about somebody that you know. Like, a lot of this book has new characters, but they're equally interesting and compelling, and you want to know more about them. But I have to say, as a prequel, this stands as one of the best so far. I'm really enjoying it. And I'm really sad to know that I'm reaching near the end of my Malazan journey soon, and the story that I'm really invested in so far has no conclusion. But again, like I said, if you were a fan of Toll the Hounds, you're probably going to love this. And if you're not, then you're probably better with The God Is Not Willing, because I hear that's more like the other books in the Book of the Fallen. It's really hot in here, even though it's winter. So I'm going to say that's pretty much it for my non-spoiler. So far, I'm really, really enjoying it. And I'll give my full thoughts and perspective when I have the whole story as a whole to talk about, at least in terms of Forge of Darkness. So we'll get to that in the next part, which you have to wait for until next week. But I do highly recommend it. I'm going to get the spoilers now. If you don't want any of that, now's the time to check out. I'll be back in a minute. Alrighty, welcome back. So we have quite a few things here. Let's start at page 1. I apologize. History is unreliable. This is very much the beginning part that you're meant to get from it, with everything, with the two people, with Fisher and poet Gallon talking. History is not very trustworthy all the time. It's written by the victors, stuff like that. So, this story, part of the joke is, if something doesn't add up, well, I just put it in for the entertainment. So that was sort of the setup to the story. Part 1, in these gifts, the shapes of adoration. We meet a character named Erethan, who turns out to be the bastard son of Draconis. We have Envy, Spite, we know both of them, and a third sister, Malice, who are sisters to Erethan. We also meet Ivis Yorthhurst, and also Erethan, we learn, is a natural swordsman. There's this amazing Draconis and Erethan scene pretty early on that was really compelling. We also meet characters like Sagander, Gallic Farron, an earlier version of Osric, and Kadaspala. We meet a new character named Hun Rao. Kadaspala currently is an artist and muses on the foolishness of being better and the inherent flaw in the ideological belief that you are better than someone, like how that's just flat out stupid in terms of race or creed or this or that. Like, if you believe that you're better than anyone, then you're foolish, essentially. It was a really interesting, it was more than that, but it was early on in the book, and I really enjoyed that section. Kadaspal is also does this sort of meta fourth wall sort of discussion on criticism, a form of oppression, in terms of criticism of media, and how I wish I should have wrote down quotes, but it was just really really well written piece of his musings on the whole idea of the critic criticizes the art, and if a critic happens to not like the art, even if there is merit to the art, that kind of gets accepted as the stance of the art, even though art is meant to be subjective. It is, and can hold meaning to different individuals. And so, the critic, by making such a determination of such and such, then makes that to the masses be the general belief about a story or a piece of art or whatever. And so then the person that happens to really connect with emotionally with some piece of art is made to feel foolish for having such a belief in this piece of art, because everyone else, the greats, are telling them that they're wrong. I don't know, it just felt very fourth wall breaking. That's sort of how criticism is some form of repression, and there's more to it than that. And I'm dumbifying everything that was said in that quote, but it was really well. I really enjoyed that section. Also, Kadaspala likes his sister. There's a lot of related people sexual attraction going on in this book, which is, it's a choice. It also seems to be, at this point in time, from what I can gather, there's a lot of Teist POVs, but there seems to be no difference between Tisti Andi, Tisti Eder, Tisti Liaison. It is just, sorry, not Tisti. I've learned, I did that to make you all mad at me again. No, I've learned from my mistakes. It is Teist. I've learned the correct pronunciation at this point. But it seems at this point in time there is no distinction. It's all just Teist. But, so I don't know if that's just something he decided to not focus on, or if that's going to be prevalent later on. I imagine it would be. But it doesn't seem like there's a distinction yet between them. We also meet a character named Anistia, who is the sister to Kataspala. We meet Hishtula, who's this older lady. And we get an amazing opening scene of Silchus, Andrus, and Animander at their father's sort of like graveside, I believe. And their dynamic is really interesting. It very much kind of gave me, because obviously it's a tragedy. We know that these people don't really have happy lives moving forward. So to see them sort of happy is so bittersweet, because I know how depressing all of their lives get in the future. So it very much gave me a lot of Midnight Tides vibes between the three of them. But also, it was another layer here. I mean, they may have said this in Book of the Fallen, and I just completely forgot or missed it. But their father was named Namander, which, of course, is Animander's son's name, which I think is interesting. We also, there's this scene with an Azanthi as Andrus is supposed to marry this lady, and there's this huge section where Animander gets super sort of confrontational with this character. And so he's like, well, if I have to give some sort of blood vow, then you two should have to give that back to me. And they kind of spar back and forth a bit, but finally the Azanthi accepts the blood vow, but he says, like, you know that you're going to be beholden to me too, and like, this has never been done before. This could be catastrophic for you. You have no idea. Are you still willing to do this? And he says, yeah. You know, he's very forceful about it. But we learn by the end of it that the Azanthi's name is Kaladin Brood. We also meet Corla Delath. Sorry, it's very hot in here. She is this, they call her hostage, but she's basically like this apprentice to this Jagat named Hot. We also meet Sandaleth. We meet this character named Farrer Hend. We also get reintroduced to Spinnick Durov and this other lady named Finara Stone. And Farrer Hend, she wants her cousin, Spinnick. We also learn that Mother Dark. This is something really interesting. Also, give me a second. I'm dying in here. Apologies. We learn that Mother Dark is a mortal woman. That she is just a Teist woman. Throughout the entirety of the Book of the Fallen, we were told that she was the creator of all. She was the first. There was nothing before dark. But we know now it is verifiably not true. Really interesting. Kajamandra Tules, betrothed to Farrar. Now I imagine this is Tules Shorn, who was a dragon later. There's also this character named Triss, who has no memory. Another Teist character that has memory loss, which is strikingly similar to the whole thing with Assail and that Teist that didn't have memory. Erethen meets Farron, and there's very much this uncomfortable romance that goes on between them when she's like old enough to be his mom. There's also this scene between Erethen's tutor and him about weakness and desire. Erethen mentions how he is his father's weakness, and he gets slapped in the face for that. And his horse, who previously his father, Draconis, had given him issue for choosing such a horse, defended him immediately and almost killed the tutor. But it was that instinctual response to save Erethen, which proved that Erethen had made a good choice. Another amazing scene between Draconis and Erethen. Hold on. One more time, almost done. Sorry for all the cuts. But there's this amazing scene between Draconis and him, and he talks about how, like, you're my weakness. And he goes, why? Because, you know, they can't use me for ransom, I'm a bastard. And if they kill me, then that doesn't really make sense either, because then the leverage that they could have held, or whatever they think they could hold, is now gone because he's dead. So what possible threat does Erethan represent? But people want to take advantage of any resentment that he may feel toward his father for not recognizing him as an official son because he is a bastard. And so he's trying to prevent Erethan from becoming resentful. And he says, it's understandable if you did resent me, because I haven't done anything to earn or be worthy of your love. And Erethan says, I didn't know that love needs a cause. I just thought it was beautiful. I wrote down the page number, page 139. I was going to read it to you, but I don't have my main phone on me. We also meet a character named Grizzin Fari, and then we jump into part 2 of the book, which is the solitude of this fire. There's this scene between Korea and Hat on civilization crowd control. How civilization is just crowd control. You know, savagery may be bad, possibly, even though Hat's kind of a savage himself. It kind of reminded me of Karsa, but he said, you know, mark my words, civilization, you know, in every age to come, this conversation will come up. And I'm kind of being vague about it, but it was a great discussion, one of my favorites of the book so far. We also learn about Sharonis Ankhadu and Tulis. We meet Orphantal and Endisalan, and there's this character named Caplo Deem and the Sheikh, which I think it sounds like something from the Dead House Gates and House of Chains books, but I'm not positive. We also get constant talks about the Vitor, which at first I thought was the Holts or the Warrens, but I don't know if that's true, because this must happen before the whole event with the crippled god, though maybe not. Maybe this does happen after everything with the crippled god and what's his name? Calor, but I'm not certain. I imagine it happens after this, but I'm not positive, so I don't know. But after all, they keep mentioning these Vitors, and I'm rather confused as to what that's meant to be. If that's a hold, a warn, or some other form of something, I'm not exactly sure. We'll have to keep reading the book to find out. They give us an answer. If this is something, we'll find out in book 3. I'm not positive. We meet another character named Grip Gallus, who kills one of the Legion characters just because he was Legion. Even though he says, like, I didn't kill whoever you're accusing me of killing, but he kills him anyway. And that's kind of how the chapter ends. I'm skipping over a bit of part 2. I'll give a broader picture once I've read the whole book, but I'll be honest, work was a little busy, so it was hard to make sure I was being accurate on everything. But that's about the gist of the things that really popped out in my mind, what was going on in this story. But so far, I'm really loving it, and I'm really excited to see how this story may end. But you have to wait and see how I feel about that when we get there in part 2. Of course, if you're watching this months ago now, I did a live stream with Marcel, the Revanchist, on this very book, so you would have already seen me discuss it probably way more in depth than I did here. But at the time of recording, this was before I'd done that with him. So, but regardless, these are my, you know, unfiltered, random thoughts as I finish these first 2 parts and letting you know how I thought about it. But anyway, guys, I'll see you next time. Till then.